All right, what's up, jobbers? It is your boy BQ and a special edition of the Impact Lounge podcast. I said I would do some roster reviews of the men and the females, the ladies, the knockouts. And I like to do these state of the knockout podcasts every couple years. Not every couple years. I like to do a couple a year. They do very good for me. And typically the complaints have been the same about them. Not about the women itself, but just the makeup of the division, the way that they've kind of overall presented a division or how they've booked it or whatever. And what the main complaint was the last couple years, probably the last like 2 or 3 years that I've been doing this, is that I always said they had no plan for the departures of Mickey James, Deonna Purrazzo, Trinity. Might have been one or two other names I threw in there, but that's the general gist of what I had said in the last few podcasts when I've been talking about this. Just no preparation for these departures, and in the case of Trinity and Mickey James, they pretty much ran through the division in their time. Their last run. I'll say the last run for Mickey James, and then obviously Trinity's singular run. Deonna Purrazzo, not so much. She did win, but I never felt that she was just running through the division to the point that she had no challengers. So that's in general what I had been saying the last few times, and it feels good this time around because I don't really feel that way. This is the deepest division that they have had since I have podcasted covering this company. By far the largest and deepest division. Now, with that being said, do I expect that to be the case come a month after Slammiversary, a month after Bound for Glory? No, I think a couple of these girls are going to be gone. Just because history says that TNA does not have this large of a knockouts division. I hope that's not the case because what's one of the things that we've been, pretty unhappy with the last couple of years in general as fans is just that knockouts tag division, because that's another thing that I've brought up before, that when they initially brought the division back, they did this like excellent job of pairing all the girls on the roster with each other. They didn't necessarily have to be feuding for the belts, but teams existed. You know what I mean? And now the last couple of years, it's been like the company's only allowed to have two knockouts tag teams, and they're gonna feud. And if you put a team together, you're gonna win. You're gonna get a title shot, and you're gonna win the title. And it's just boring. And every time it feels like, oh, they might have 3 or 4 teams, then they go back. Something happens where they're back to two. So now, I mean, we have two, but then we have a couple other possibilities within the roster as well. So, it looks like they might be doing a better job with that. And, they had a couple. So, WWE released several wrestlers recently. And usually we're going to get on here and say, okay, let's look at the females they released and can they bring something to the division? And I can be very critical when they rely too much on WWE or former WWE talents. Now they're actually relying on WWE. But when they rely on former WWE talents, but the way I've always, kind of phrased it is it doesn't it's not as much of a bad look in the knockouts division as it is the men, because the men's roster is so much larger, and every time you bringing in these guys, you're just knocking down your homegrown talents. That happens to an extent in the knockouts. Like Kiera Hogan never really broke through the ceiling because of that. Um, I would say maybe a Zia Brookside has always been kind of held down because of that, but it does not have the same effect on the roster, on the knockouts roster, as it does the men. So it doesn't really bother me when they bring in some familiar faces, as long as they're not doing the Trinity like 2-star match, beat every single girl on the roster and hold the title for a year. Like that's totally different. But that being said, I'm not as hungry for them to sign more knockouts right now because I'm actually pretty pleased with what they have. With what they have going on. For the first time in forever, I don't feel like they have to go sign girls. If they want to put some tag teams together, they can. And the example that I gave on my last podcast was I was talking about that 841 match. Is that the right name for it? 841, 842? I don't know. And you have 8 knockouts wrestling. And what I said on the podcast was I said on Twitter, a couple years ago, it feels like every single knockout on the roster would have been in this match. And then it was kind of like, wow, there's no Laying Lee. There's no inspiration. There's no Alicia Edwards. There's no man, I always mess up their names. Harley Race, Maya Moore. I know her name's not Maya. You know me, guys. Like because I don't live, shit, eat, and breathe wrestling. So sometimes when they bring in these new names, I'm like, dude, I cannot remember their names. Uh, but when I review the roster here, I've got their names written down. I'll get them correct. But you're bringing in, all these girls, and you have this big match that features 8 knockouts, and it's just like, man, a lot of the division is still not in this match. That's really unheard of. So the free agents that are kind of out there right now, Cora Jade, who's Alana Black, I believe. I think you can just scratch her off the list because she's already openly said she wants to go to AEW. Shotzi Blackheart, who TNA fans think of fondly because she's had a couple matches within the company, and she fits the smaller wrestling company way better than she does, a large one like WWE. But she has already openly said she likes to go to AEW. She said good things about TNA, but she has openly said she wants to go there. So, and the thing was, they can actually wrestle as a tag team, um, which would have been a nice addition, but they've both openly said they want to go there. So you can just pretty much scratch them off the list. And who else was there? So Gigi Dolan / Priscilla Kelly. I would be shocked if we didn't see her in the division because of her relationship with Zachary Wentz. And I think would be a good addition. She's not a very good promo. She's solid enough in the ring, but I would just be shocked if we didn't see her. I've actually been a fan of hers for a while. Like there was a period of time in my life when but it was when I got off active duty and I was just working as a bouncer, 3 days a week. Like I really wasn't working. I was just home a lot. That was like the 6-month period of my time where I was a wrestling mark and I watched everything. I was watching New Japan and Ring of Honor and all this shit. I watched every single company. I would watch midget wrestling if it was, I think as a matter of fact, I did watch one of my events that I had to bounce for was midget wrestling. So I watched everything at one point. But I used to order pay-per-views of like independent companies, $10 pay-per-views, and I would watch Shine and Shimmer and all this shit. And that's where I became familiar with Priscilla Kelly. So I kind of got into her. I liked her quite a bit. And then we know that let me not get into spoilers for the episode. And it has nothing to do with the knockouts. I was going to go off on a tangent, but let me reserve that for when the episode actually airs. But there's a couple women out there. There's this Nikki Blackheart girl that's like damn near going viral. That that is the closest thing you can find to a Jordan Grace out there. Like you throw whatever money at this girl. She's got the look, she's got the move set, like that. I already know she's on freaking AEW's radar, but the knockouts division offers so much because you're going to get used if you join the division. If you join the company, you come in as a female, you're going to get used in one way, shape, or form. You're not going to be in the back in catering with Taya Valkyrie and Deanna Perrazzo. Like if those girls are in the back in catering, you know, that says something where you can take the lowest knockout on this roster, whoever you think that is, and they're doing something. for the most part. You know what I mean? So TNA offers a lot for the women. They always will. So it's always going to be a strong point for the company, and that's why the fans kind of get upset when the roster is not growing, because has been happening in the past is that it's a roller coaster. The knockouts division is a roller coaster. One year you'll kick it off, and it's like they add a couple knockouts. All of a sudden, it feels like the division is growing, and then like a year later, you're like, "Yo, the same girls are still in the division, and we're watching the same exact matches." And then after we're done complaining with that, they add a couple more knockouts, and it's kind of like, okay, it's fresh again. And then fast forward several months down the road, we're like, damn, now we're watching the same matches again. You know what I'm saying? And this has happened several times during the time I've been podcasting, and it's always pissed me off. And this is the freshest, deepest this division has looked. So I'm excited. I'm very excited. As I said, though, this is not the TNA way. So I just would not be shocked if a couple of these names came off the list, because if you're able to bring in a Priscilla Kelly, you're not going to add her to this group. I assure you, because she's not going to come that cheap. You're going to remove someone from this list. She's going to replace somebody. They only really released Savannah Evans recently, I think, and they brought in several names. So again, it's just not the TNA way, but we will see. We will see. We're going to get into this division. I'm actually going to kind of one by one talk about these girls. It's going to be somewhat in alphabetical order. I'm going to kind of start with the champions, and I say somewhat in alphabetical order because there's obviously stables and tag teams, whatever, mixed in here, and I'm just going to lump them all together. I'm not going to talk about M by Elegance after I talk about Ash by Elegance. You know what I mean? It just makes no sense to do that. But we're going to do this one time for your mind, and we're going to start off with the Knockouts World Champion, the Director of Waste Management, Masha Slamovich.
How do you like my garbage truck? This truck is in honor of Kamala and Joe Biden.
I think she has been a very good champion. I think we're getting there to where we get the belt off her. But she's been a very, very good champion. She has not just run through the division, even though she's been relatively dominant than some of the past Knockouts champions. She's dominant, but she's not running through the division at the point where you're just like, oh my God, she has no opponents left. It's believable that she can beat all these girls. I would have had Tessa beat her personally. I'd rather Tessa be the champion, but neither here nor there. Tessa will get her moment. But it's believable that she can beat all these girls. And it's actually kind of believable that they could beat her. So when you're seeing her defend the title, it's not as much of a foregone conclusion that she's going to win as it was like Jordynne Grace. You know what I mean? They want her to be Jordynne Grace. She's not. And they need to realize she's not. They're not creating the next Jordynne Grace with her. They are creating a great knockouts champion. She is going to go down as one of the best knockouts ever in this division, but she's not Jordynne Grace. She cut a promo last week's episode, talking about Killer Kelly, which I said on my review, this was the best podcast. Can you imagine Masha podcast? This was the best promo she's done. I've been a little critical about her promos, just because I think they're not that original. The content she says is not that original, and then her, she's working on her appearance as well, because for a while she was putting on these outfits like. It's like the old Warner Brother cartoons, or what? I don't think Warner Brothers is what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of like Tom and Jerry or something, where the one dog would be coming chasing Tom, and he would run through someone's yard, and then he would run through their laundry, and then just come out on the other side wearing all these random things. That's kind of what Masha looks like to me when she comes out to the ring. It's always like, what what random like Salvation Army outfit did she find this week? You know, but they're finding they're getting there. They're getting there with her. But yeah, again, I think she's been a good champion. I think it's time to drop it here pretty soon. I would, because she also stands the possibility is also there that she can be a very bland champion. So I think they have to be kind of careful with that. But you know, she's been one of the MVPs for the division. Moving on, Knockouts Tag Team Champions. Ash by Elegance.
Come on, Teddy. Come on, Teddy.
And her partner, Heather by Elegance.
He has an erection.
Yeah. It's all her fault.
And we're going to lump in there future WWE legend, M by Elegance.
My favorite match was with Melina and Alicia Fox.
You know, that soundbite, it's the reason I use that soundbite for her. You know, I explained when she debuted a couple months ago that her Twitter, her pinned tweet on Twitter, on X, is that I think it's her mom. And she gave her mom a letter and said, I gave my mom this when I was 13 or 14 and told her to open it when I get to WWE. So for that reason, I just say future WWE legend. And then, you know, famously on Tough Enough, I actually forgot her. Oh, she was Cameron in WWE. I think she was the very first elimination, and famously, she is the only one that actually wrestled a match in WWE. You know, out of that group, even the winner. So that's why I use that soundbite. But now we actually have Alicia Fox on the roster. So I don't know if I need to use that for her and find M by Elegance a new one. I don't know. It's keeping me up at night though. I'm losing sleep over it. So we're gonna start talking about Ash here. And I've pointed out that I am a fan of Ash by Elegance. I am, because I have very fond memories of her. When I talked about a second ago my 6-month wrestling mark days, she was a part of NXT, and I really grew close to a lot of those wrestlers I watched on TV during that time. So I'm a fan of hers. I want to see her succeed. I want to see her do well. I was happy when they signed her. But man, she's kind of been a mixed bag since she's joined the company. It took a while. I enjoy what she's doing now with the Elegance brand. I'm into that. It took a while to get here, though. I think they did an excellent job of not throwing her in the Knockouts title picture immediately. And they didn't have her win the title either. She has that WWE pedigree, but she also didn't really do anything in WWE. As long as she was there, she was just like the 24/7 champion. And aside from that, was not, you know, so and a lot of cachet did not come with her. She wasn't, you know, if she won the Knockouts title, it wasn't like she was going to bring all these new eyeballs. So I understand why they didn't put the belt on her. I also understand why they put her in the title picture pretty quickly. But at the same time, they didn't do it quickly because they dragged it out. They just had her showing up at Jordynne Grace's matches. They weren't really messing with each other. They weren't talking with each other. They didn't get their hands on each other. Nothing. So they did actually a pretty good job. You knew from the beginning she was wrestling for the title. I mean, you just knew that. But they dragged it out a lot longer than they typically do with anyone new who comes in. You know? But where I thought they really, really, truly freaking messed up with her was when the episode where she got into the ring and attacked Jordynne Grace from behind for the first time. If you go back and watch that segment, the crowd, there was an actual pop for this from the crowd because there was a build to these two getting in the ring together. Whether people cared, whether they wanted to see the match or not is irrelevant. There was still a build in a wrestling world where we don't have those kind of builds anymore. So the crowd actually popped for it. Ash attacks Jordynne from behind. Within 15 seconds, Ash is on her ass outside the ring doing bad comedy. And I said at the time, I'm out. I'm making excuses for this girl because I'm a fan, and I said, "I'm out." Because that was the one opportunity I thought to elevate that and to elevate her after she'd been frankly doing bad comedy for a while. She thinks she's funny, she's not. The personal concierge is funny and he saves the gimmick. And then I think Heather does very good in her role. We'll get to her here in a second. But she is not as funny as she thinks she is. And that is like it killed her a little bit. Where it's always kind of like let's resort to comedy when sometimes it's not necessary, you know? So I thought it killed her, and I thought it killed any chance of her being taken seriously because she's a very like unserious wrestler, and that's okay sometimes, but sometimes it calls for being serious. That was a moment that called for her to be serious, and she resorted back to silliness. Now, this Elegance brand, this tag team, this has saved her because I think WWE, TNA has always wanted to put a belt on her. The Knockouts title is probably a little too much for her. Tag titles are perfect. It took a long time to get here, though. That was my biggest issue. It took forever to get the title on the Elegance brand, and they just kept. I mean, they were. I mean, how many times have I talked about this with you guys? They were just wrestling Spitfire week after week, one on one and tag, and just kept coming up with excuses to continue to wrestle, and it just would not end. It would not stop. And what was really bothering me is that I was like, the Elegance brand is, I want to see them be the champions. Like with their gimmick, I want to see them with the belts. And they wanted to keep them on these other two bland girls rather than on these two that have a gimmick and and personality and a manager. And, it would just been more entertaining. It just took forever for them to get here. So Heather joining the company is the best thing that could have happened to Ash. When she was signed, I'm wrong on so many predictions. It's crazy. This was like one of the ones that I was correct on. Where I just said, man, she would be great next to Ash. I think I called her a lackey or a mini me. I hate that term, mini me, so much. Like every single mom on Facebook, my mini me. Anyway, I hate that term, but I basically said like a protege or whatever. Like I thought that would work very, very well. They look good next to each other. They're both shorter in stature, you know, and that's exactly what they did. So I was very happy about that. She's good in the ring. She's better than Ash in the ring. Like Ash is really athletic, but for some reason it just doesn't translate to her in ring work for the most part. Heather's a little better in the ring. I've always thought every time she wrestles, I'm like, this girl's pretty good. She's a better actress as well. She's more of in a supporting role to where Ash is more front and center, but I think she's a better actor, and she has helped keep this gimmick. The concierge too, but Heather has helped keep this gimmick leveled out a little bit because we see a lot of the times when I talk about the bad comedy with Ash, she would just make everything about her, like that Knockouts number one contender battle royal a few months ago, where we're trying to establish the number one contender, and it was like the whole match was centered around her comedy, and I put comedy in quotes. Heather keeps her act a little more reserved. It keeps it leveled. I don't know the best way to put it. But she's very good. I don't know how long this tag team is going to stick together because I expected a long title run, but then once they brought the inspiration in, I'm just like, I don't think TNA can help themselves. I don't see them not putting the titles on those girls almost immediately. So we'll see what they do. And by Elegance, seen a couple of her matches so far. They brought her in because she has a unique look as far as her stature goes. I think she's 5'11", 6 foot. And it's an interesting dynamic next to Ash and Heather, who are both so short. Where I think we know Heather is, I think they said 4'10", which is wild because that's my daughter's height and she's in 7th grade. And Ash cannot be taller than 5'2". That that's what I'm guessing. 5'2", 5'3" at the most, if we're being generous. So it's an interesting dynamic. And what is very interesting about this, on top of just the dynamic, is that they brought her in with a plan. And when they said they signed her, I'm kind of like, okay, she's different, but what are they gonna do with her? You know, there's some girls you just bring in, like say you brought in Shotzi Blackheart with she's got all this personality and the look and the tank and the hair and the hat, and you're just kind of like, okay, I can see them doing something with her. Like I can just see a plan. You know, you bring in M by Elegance, you're like, what are they gonna do with her? Just have her wrestle good matches? You know, and they brought her in, and when they added her to this group, I thought it was temporary because Ash was on one of her many vacations. I wish I could take much time off as this woman, but I thought it was just kind of, hey, Ash is off TV for a bit. We just need to add another girl to the group, and they did that. And then I thought, once Ash came back, they were going to kick her out, and that's not what they did. So I'm happy about that. I am excited about the new dynamic. It freshens up this tag team, and hopefully, like I said, where I think Heather evens, levels things out and keeps Ash from getting too silly. I think Maggie can hopefully help that even a little bit more. So they're a good act, and I'm interested to see what this title run looks like. And then we've got my girl, Alicia Edwards.
Hey, baby.
Where internally they looked at Alicia like one of the MVPs last year because she came such a long way from a character standpoint. And she was somebody that the fans for the longest time would have had no bones about being released from the roster because the complaints were bad promos, bad matches. And yeah, she was not a good actor as a babyface. And there's no bigger Alicia Edwards fan in the world than me, and I can tell you that. Her acting was bad. I wasn't as offended by her matches as people were because frankly they used her as an enhancement talent for a long time. And you can't really get over if that's your role is to just come in and lose. She never had a feud outside and never had a storyline outside of being Eddie Edwards' wife. And I understand it's his real life wife, but every time we're like, hey, we need to get some heat on the heel versus Eddie Edwards, let's bring in the wife. It was a crutch that they just continued to use. They've always used that. That's a crutch that the company loves, the wife crutch. But they just like kept going back to that with Alicia. And I don't take wrestling too seriously to the point where stuff like really makes me mad. But I remember being so excited when Tennille Dashwood was starting to influence, and she had Alicia Edwards for like 3 weeks. That was her partner. They had a weird dynamic because Alicia was still kind of a baby face, but she was like an annoying. It was kind of the annoying member, annoying Tennille, but Tennille was still taking her under her wing. I was really excited to see what they were going to do with that, and I remember like, oh my god, they actually have a storyline for Alicia Edwards. And then they randomly broke her off, and they brought in Madison Rayne, but they randomly broke her off so that she could go be Eddie Edwards' wife for the feud versus Moose. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? So there was just no opportunity for character development within this woman. They gave her nothing. She's the only person on this roster that over the course of her being signed for and stretch it out to 3-4 years that they gave nothing. Champagne Singh has had something to do. Fallah Bah had something to do. Alicia always had nothing. And now she's one of the standouts of the show. She has really come into her own with the system and with being a heel. And, she has said in podcasts that she actually doesn't like to wrestle. She would rather get paid to manage. So she really doesn't have to wrestle all that much. But it works. She's a manager. That's kind of what she does, valet. But I'm very happy to see how far she has come. I don't think she's ever going to be the Knockouts tag team champion. I mean, the Knockouts champion. She was a tag team champion for a little bit with Masha Slamovich, so that was really cool for me to actually see her hold some kind of gold and everything they're doing within the system. But she has come a long way, and she deserves props for many improvements. Next on the menu, we got the Inspiration.
I am iconic.
And this was a great signing. This is a great team to bring back. We don't know how long they're going to be here. We thought they were here long term. The first time around, they literally did the TNA thing where they came in, won the title on the first night, kept it, beat everybody, lost the title, left. And that was very disappointing for a lot of people. And they're very over. Very, very over. They feel like a big deal when they come out on TV. You know, they clearly learned a lot from their time in WWE and their time in NXT. And again, these are two other girls, as I said, very similar about Ash, that I have fond memories of Dana Brooke in NXT. I have fond memories of these girls because they were in that time that I was watching NXT, they were used as jobbers, but I knew they were kind of part of the NXT system, and because of their height and their, a couple of things that they were able to do, I had some interest. I was like, I'm gonna keep my eye on these girls. And of course, they look super plain, generic ring gear. And, look at them now. They've come an extremely long way. They're very popular. Like, you could never make them heels. That would not work. The crowd would not boo them. They're very, very organically over. My concern is that they're going to win the titles here very, very quickly, like Slammiversary. And I would like to see the Elegance brand hold them for a little bit because it took them forever to win the damn titles. So I would like to see them hold them for a little bit before they just freaking drop them to these WWE girls. So I want TNA booking. Are you going to find something for the Inspiration to do rather than what it was before, where all you knew how to do was make them the champions? Can you find another storyline? Can you find another angle to make them interesting without having them just come in and win the belts? So we shall see, but I'm very happy that they're back. This is a great addition to this roster because the roster was already in a nice place and it was already kind of growing, and then all of a sudden they throw these two girls on the top of it. And it's like, whoa, good for you, TNA. So hopefully they're around for a little bit this time around. I would imagine they were probably trying to see if there was some opportunity at AEW. But again, you want to be a women's wrestler. This is the company you need to look at because they're going to find something for you to do. Next up, Danny Luna.
God damn, bit like Mewtwo.
I've never been a fan of Spitfire. I had no issue with them putting the two girls together. I think it was actually very smart to put them together. But the reason I was never a fan was because I really was a fan of MK Ultra. And I know there was probably some things that happened behind the scene here, but they just came and just, beat them in 30 seconds, won titles, and that already just kind of like rubbed me the wrong way because to me, they were like jobbers. And I know that's like a bad term in wrestling, whatever. I say jobbers, I say fat, I say fake, I say whatever I want. But they were, they were not two girls that I was looking at where it's like, hey, they're going to have runs with a title. I just never saw that. But they did have a lengthy run, multiple runs. And Danny, they both stood out for different reasons. I think Jody Threat is a better wrestler, but I think Danny Threat is a better attraction because the power moves that she does, the other girls aren't doing. So that stands out from everybody on the roster, And that was that was something that in Spitfire's tag team matches, everyone was getting into. They're when they knew Spitfire was going to wrestle, they're like, "Hey, what's Danny Luna going to do this match?" Because she was always just busting out new things that we hadn't seen before as far as power. In wrestling, we're getting so used to the flips and the rolls and the ducks and the dips and the dives, and we're getting away from power moves, and she brings that. I don't know. When I told you guys, I just wouldn't be shocked if they didn't drop a couple girls from this roster here, whether it's after Slammiversary, whether it's after Bound for Glory. Like she's one of the ones that comes to mind, just because we're seeing the Scott D'Amore hires be the ones that go right. So I don't think the fans want to see her go though, because I think a lot of them want to see what she can do as a singles wrestler. So hopefully she gets that opportunity. She's finally breaking off from the tag team thing. The tag team was good for her. Now let's see what happens with her by herself. Harley Hudson.
Hey guys, sorry I'm late. Had to go number 2.
Good to know.
I told you guys she was coming. And I think it was kind of put out there via dirt sheets and stuff too, but I told you guys she was coming when her visa issue was settled. And as I said, I give you guys the truth. I tell you things that you need to hear. And everyone was always asking, where's Harley Hudson and where's the dude who won Gut Check? And I told you will see Harley Hudson. You will not see the guy. The guy will never show up on this show. But Harley Hudson, her time will come. And I think it took like 2 years for her to get here. She's got a great look. She's hot. I've only seen a couple of her matches because I obviously took my break from watching the show. I think she has something to offer. And I think the fans are going to be very, very behind her because they've been waiting on her for a long time. The WWE portion of the audience that watches the show does not know who she is. And it may take a while to win them over. But, I think she has something. She stands out. And there's not a whole lot I can say about her because I don't know a whole lot about her. But so far, I just feel like she stands out. I think when she does her entrance, the finger on the ass thing, I just think that's like real 1994. And I don't, that's like putting the loser L up on your forehead. It just, I don't know. She can do something better than that. But I'm very excited to see what she can do because this is going to be a home, 100% homegrown talent. And there's always interest in how will TNA handle girls like that. Someone who is not a homegrown talent, Indy Hartwell.
How long did it take you to learn English once you got here?
It was really easy because we speak English in Australia, you fucking idiot.
We knew she was going to show up in this company. Everybody knew when she was released, we're getting Indy Hartwell. But people like Indy Hartwell, and she wanted to join TNA. She wanted to be a knockout. It wasn't about, let me come here for a cup of coffee while I try to get back to WWE. And for that reason, people really like her. With my LA Clippers, we're very fond of James Harden and we're very fond of Kawhi Leonard because they chose to be Clippers. They weren't like, we want to go play in LA. We kind of want to play for the Lakers, but we'll settle for the Clippers. Like they wanted to be Clippers. Where, a lot of the big names in basketball, they're going to want to join the Lakers if they come to LA. Even though the Clippers have been a significantly better team over the last decade, Clippers have not won anything where the Lakers have. So we're very fond of these guys because they want to be part of our team. So I think the TNA fans will always be very fond of Indy Hartwell for really genuinely wanting to be here. And I think she'll always be over as a babyface. I had no problem with them bringing her aboard, but only if you're going to evaluate her and see what she can add to the division and let her grow on her own and somewhat repackage her. Don't try to bring in the comedy character from WWE. We have enough comedy on this show. We have way too much of it, actually. But we've always known this girl was going to show up. From what I've seen so far, I think they are presenting her pretty well. I think she's decent enough in the ring. I like her finisher. Even though it has to have Tom Hanfin with hurts, don't it? She's going to be the next Knockouts champion, I believe. I think she is. I think there's a strong possibility she's going to beat Masha. I think it's very likely she's going to wrestle for the belt at Slammiversary because that's how TNA books. So, we'll see. She's going to win the title at some point. I can freaking promise you that. Within her run, however long this contract is, she will be the champion at some point. But it's going to be very important that they build her up the right way in that process. I think that's going to be very, very important. Next, your favorite, Jody Threat.
I just felt like running.
And man, poor Jody's been just the butt of my jokes for a really long time. When they signed her, I didn't really understand why they did. I think that was another Scott D'Amore signing, so that's that might be another name on the chopping block. Who knows? And similar to what I said for Danny Luna, it was good that they put them together in a team. I think as single wrestlers, they were not going to do anything. I don't think either of them were going to do jack shit. There is optimism now because they've already been established. They've been a part of this team for a while. She's had gold a couple times. Now it's like, okay, let's see what we can do with Jody Threat as a singles wrestler. I still don't think she's winning the Knockouts championship or anything like that anytime soon. And towards the end of Spitfire, I started kind of enjoying her in the ring. I do think she's pretty good. I think that F5 finisher that she hits, called the 4 whatever, I don't know. I think it looks like shit 90% of the time. I don't know what it is. I don't think it's because she's a female, because Rosemary did the red wedding for a long time and it looked fine. So I think she needs a new finisher. But aside from that, I do think she's pretty good in the ring, and I think the fans are starting to come around to her as well. And again, I don't know what her future is in the company because Scott signed her. But I'm willing to give it a chance. I'm willing to, not that now that you're not dominating the Knockouts tag team division, Jody Threat, I'm willing to see what you can do as a singles wrestler. Killer Kelly.
I'm pregnant.
Fuck off.
What?
What?
I'm pregnant?
That's another one that I was like, man, just don't be surprised if she's not here in a few months, which I don't want that to happen because I like her and everybody likes her. We're gonna see what this. I can see why they went immediately into this program with Masha Slamovich. I just feel like they're throwing it away though, where it's, if they keep her around, it is a feud that they can revisit. Not a feud, but it is a match that they can revisit quite often because their matches have been really good against each other. They can be that Jordan Grace, Deonna Purrazzo type of pairing where you can revisit it whenever you need to, and people will be into it. The fans really want to see what Kelly can do because she showed up once in this, I think the Knockouts tag team title tournament. She didn't have the look that she has now. Excuse me. And then she was gone. And I was under the impression they always had interest in bringing her in, but it was like I think it's a visa issue. I know she's Portuguese, but I don't know that she's not a citizen. I feel like it was a visa issue with her. I'm not totally sure. But I think they always had some interest in bringing her on. They just couldn't. And then finally they did. And she's been pretty over with the TNA audience. She made her return, I think, at Against All Odds. No one knew who she was in the crowd. The WWE people did not know her. Despite her, I think, being in NXT for a little bit, I don't think they knew who she was. It just did not sound like they did. But I know the actual TNA diehards, like that portion of the audience, was very excited to see her return. And again, I can see why they have her wrestling Masha right away. But, at the same time, I don't expect her to beat her. So what's next for her after that? That's what I'm saying, man. maybe she's just back for the match. But I was encouraged because when this happy birthday TNA video rolled around, she was in it. You know, I don't think they would have had her wish TNA happy birthday if they were going to release her in a month. So we'll see. The queen of pregnancy, the queen of delivering children. Man, next up is another one that I just would not be shocked if we just never see her return again. It's Kylin King.
And no one ever touched my feet before.
That's a huge bitch.
I love Kylin King. When they had signed her, I was quite pleased with that announcement because I was watching AEW at the time. She was doing AEW Dark, but she was winning matches on AEW Dark, which means that it's almost like AEW was probably going to bring her up to the roster and sign her, and that just never really happened. But I've always thought she was really good. I thought that tag team with Taylor Wilde was a nightmare. You know, thank God they broke her out of that. But, you know, they brought her in briefly once, and then I think she did not sign because I think she was still trying to get over to AEW. And I think when that was clear that wasn't going to happen, then she returned and she signed with the Knockouts. She was voted the one to watch for, and then she got hurt, and we're going on. I think we're going on 2 years of her being hurt. We're at least a year and a half into her being injured. I was told a while back that she was coming back soon, and this is when I was told that was this time last year. Not quite this time, but probably September or something like that. Because I remember telling you guys, I think she's going to return at the Call Your Shot Gauntlet, and she didn't. And so we're pretty much coming up on a year away from me expecting her to return. So maybe she won't. I don't know. I hope that she does. I hope she has the opportunity. I thought that there was an opportunity to team her and Savannah Evans up for a bit. I thought that could have worked. Like a very Twin Towers type of thing. Maybe that opportunity exists with M by Elegance, you know? Because she is also, I believe they're the same height. But I met Kylin King once. And, you know, I was saying she's actually very pretty in real life. Not that she's not on screen, but she's one of those ones in real life. You're kind of like, oh, wow. And she's pretty tall. Like, she was taller than me. I want to say she's like 6'1". So we want girls like that on the roster. So hopefully she's back soon and we can, because she can actually win the title. She could have a run as the champion. And I think people would enjoy it. Who we got next? Lelaying Lee.
From Chingchong, China.
This was one of those, you wrestled in WWE, so come sign here. She had a good match with Tessa. I would imagine she had a good match with Masha. I didn't watch it when she was wrestling for the title. Her English is not bad. You know, it's better than a lot of other wrestlers who English is their second language. I don't know what they're gonna do with her. For me, it's still a little hard. Like, how are you gonna book this girl? Like, what is she? Is she gonna be involved in storylines? I thought that the storyline she had with Tessa was really rushed, and then she kind of tried to have a feud with Rosemary. Rosemary spit the mist in her eyes. That was really fast and real rushed, and it almost seems like they're trying, but they're just going through the opponents so quickly. But if they are able to, I think the best thing that you can do with her is put her in a tag team. And I think she's been teaming up with Zia Brookside a little bit. But the best thing you can do is put them together. Or put her with somebody. To where she doesn't have to talk a whole lot. Because, I mean, face it, you've got to be able to talk in today's wrestling world to enter into any kind of feud. So again, her English is not that bad, but it just seems like the couple opportunities they had so far, they've rushed. You know, they had the You remember Savannah Evans attacks her, and I remember saying, "Wow, they." I mean, I will still say this: have always struggled to create knockouts feuds that weren't centered around the title. It seems like they're making some improvements, but they've always struggled with that. You're either wrestling for the title or you're not. You're just a wrestler on the show. You'll be featured on the show. You'll have matches. You just won't be doing anything that interesting. So when they had Savannah Evans attack her, I was like, wow, we got a little feud here. And they killed that off so quickly, having one of the worst matches in the history of the Knockouts division. Lelaying Lee beats her in 4 minutes. Killed any opportunity for Savannah Evans to have a singles run. And the match was so bad that I think it killed Lelaying Lee's opportunity to have much of a singles run. I think that was a feud that was much needed for the both of them. And they just completely flushed it down the toilet on us. There's a world where she could be the Knockouts champion one day. But I do think the best thing for her right now is probably to be in a tag team. All right. Next up, Mila Grace.
Greg, would you like to say grace?
Much like Harley Hudson, very hot. They have not signed a lot of women over the years that look like this. And she is a fresh face. She is a fresh talent. Again, much like Harley Hudson, I can't say a whole lot because I've only seen a couple matches. I think teaming her with Harley Hudson is very smart. I think that is the right thing to do. I wish I could tell you more about her. I just haven't seen a whole lot, but she has a very, very good look. And this is again someone that we, homegrown kind of build from the bottom up. And, just based off look alone, you can see her wrestling at the top of the card. So I'm looking forward to seeing her grow within the company. I just don't know right now what she can do. But I'm here for it. I am here for it. Next up, Steph De Lander.
Everybody's been real nice.
Well, that's because you have big jugs.
When they brought her on the first time, she kind of came and did a one-off and wrestled Jordan Grace and lost, and it was just like, okay. And then they seemed to, over time try to bring her back, and I was just like, man, I just don't know if I see it with her. Again, she's got some size to her as well. But I'm like, man, I just don't know if I see it. And then, they had her in one of the worst storylines ever since I've covered this company, which was the marriage to PCO. And that was so fucking bad. And fortunately they got out of it. But it did help her character development a little bit. We haven't seen her wrestle a whole lot. The fans did not care about her. She said that she broke her neck or had a neck injury. She didn't break it, but she had a neck injury. And she cut this 10-minute promo to crickets, and no one cared. But since then, she's grown incrementally over time to where right now she's a big personality on the show. And bringing Mance Warner for her, Mance Warner by himself would not have been a good idea. But them two as a pair, as a team, really, really work. And she's kind of got the big personality, and she's really growing into herself as a character. I don't know when she's going to be cleared to wrestle again. But right now, in the role that she's in, she's doing an excellent job. And much like I said with Lelaying Lee, a couple of these other girls, Kylin King, there is a world where she could win the belt. She's a former digital media champion. A fucking trash-ass title, man. So we'll see what they do with her when she can wrestle again, but she's really coming into her own in her role that they've got for her right now. Rosemary.
Oh, what's that? Is that Rosemary? Think? What the hell is she doing?
Longest tenured knockout. I think Alicia's the second longest tenured. Rosemary's the longest tenured knockout. Everyone likes Rosemary. There's been different versions of Rosemary over the years. I don't think she'll ever be more over and popular than she was in the beginning with Decay. They tried to put Decay back together. It didn't really work. I thought her second best run was when she was with Taya Valkyrie. You know, they started off doing a bunch of bad comedy, but then they put them together as a heel tag team. It was kind of short lived because Taya Valkyrie left. But I think that was her second best run. That was the resurgence of her career. And she has done a lot over the years. She has one Knockouts title reign. She has a couple tag team title reigns, which have been complete bullshit because I've talked about this before. All of the Decay title runs were because someone left the company or someone's contract ran out or someone got hurt. Look at Wikipedia. Look at Decay's title runs and tell me they weren't transitional champions. I think they've won them 3 times. One time might have been as the Death Dolls, but everything was transitional. Every single fucking title reign. Then they came and dropped them to the Inspiration that one night, which made Decay look horrible because no one cared about Decay. Everyone cared about the Inspiration. You know, and right now I don't know what she's doing because before I took my break, it was like she was switching between babyface and heel and kind of doing this program with Zia Brookside. And I don't think she beat Zia Brookside in any of these matches, but they kept wrestling. So I don't know. I mean, Rosemary she probably has a spot within TNA as long as she wants it. I don't think she's one of those girls that they're ever gonna be like, okay, we're done with you. We're gonna release you. Like that would the fans would turn on TNA big time. And there's been many times where I'm like, I don't know what you do with Rosemary, you know, but she always kind of seems to find a way. And she's, you know, arguably the most popular of the Knockouts. I don't know if she's a heel or babyface right now. Like I have no freaking idea. Now that I'm getting back into the show, sure we'll get a feel for it. I don't know who she can feud with at this point. It just seemed weird that she kind of had this long feud with Zia Brookside, and it just didn't seem like either of them came out on the other end any different. They've been trying to say, well, you know, Zia Brookside has an edge to her now. Like I watched her wrestle on last week's episode; she was exactly the same. So I don't know. I would love to see one more Knockouts title reign for Rosemary. I just don't think it's in the cards. I just think TNA says, hey, if you're here for a long time, we're so happy to have you. If you're here for a short time, here's your belt. That just kind of seems how it is. Next up, one of my favorite wrestlers in the world, Tessa Blanchard.
Oh, I don't like this. That if the Nuggets don't win this.
I'm very happy they gave Tessa a second chance. When I went to the TNA show in Vegas and they were chanting, "You're a racist," I did not feel like it was directed at her because they really felt that way. I feel like it was like you're just chanting that now because you're part of the show. Fans being part of the show chant that. I did not get the vibe actually being in the arena that there was genuine heat on her for that. One of my favorite wrestlers ever. I was over the moon when they brought her in the first time, and I was very over the moon when they brought her in the second time too. I've always really, really liked her. I first watched her in my Wrestling Mark days when I ordered a Shine pay-per-view, and she wrestled Rachel Ellering, and it was one of the best matches at the time that I had seen between two girls. So I got very connected to Tessa Blanchard. She came in and did some job work on NXT. But I've always loved her character. She's, you know, pretty believable. She's a little over the top sometimes. Pretty believable. I was pretty shocked she didn't win the title from Masha Slamovich. She has to win the title this year. I just cannot see a world where she's not in 2025 not the Knockouts champion at some point. In my mind, I kind of see Indy Hartwell possibly beating Masha and then Tessa taking it off Indy, or Masha Slamovich holds the title to Bound for Glory and Tessa wins it there. Kind of like they're trying to, as I said earlier, the Jordan Grace, Deonna Purrazzo dynamic. The company internally may feel that the dynamic exists between Masha and Tessa. That's very, very possible. That might be one of those feuds that, like, hey, we can revisit Tessa loses here, but we can wrestle again in 6 months and Tessa wins, you know? So I just have a hard time in 2025 saying Tessa's not going to be the Knockouts champion. But she's the best wrestler on this roster. She is much better than anyone on the roster. She's better than Masha. She's a pro, in my opinion. But now that they've got Victoria Crawford with her, you kind of got a tag team too. So maybe that's in the cards. Maybe a title reign as a tag team is in the cards. We'll see. But I'm glad they gave her a second opportunity because she's very good. She's very valuable. And you're always going to get an incredible match and an incredible performance when you've got Tessa Blanchard. Almost done here. Tasha Steels.
We've got a badass over here.
Tasha has never. I haven't watched this past episode. It looks like they could potentially go that direction, but Tasha's never been a babyface in this company. She's always been very, very over with the crowd. She is a former Knockouts champion, former tag team champion. You know, Fire and Flava was a great act. They had a hell of an act there. But, you know, Kiera Hogan moved on because she felt that she was pigeonholed into tag team wrestling and they weren't going to do anything with her as a singles wrestler. So she took off to go sit in catering at Ring of Honor. But Tasha stayed, and Tasha has had, you know, I talk about Alicia Edwards having growth as a character and a performer and being an MVP. Like, Tasha's one of those. Tasha has really come into her own. If you watched Tasha Steels in NWA and watch Tasha Steels now, they're two completely different human beings. And there was one point not too long ago, I said that Tasha Steels is the best knockout on the roster. I don't mean she's the best wrestler. I mean she's the best promo. But as far as like the total package to me, someone who just has a little bit of everything, she doesn't have the size. You know, stature-wise, she's not there. Obviously, she's very small. But everything else that you could want, crowd reaction, theme song, presence, the wrestling, the talking, the believability. To me, she just has so much to offer. And I think putting her in Order 4 was a great move. It looks like Order 4 is falling apart. How do you develop Tasha from here? What is your plan for her from here? Because they've done a good job of finding these girls some roles, you know, a few of these girls where they're like valets, you know, they've done a very good job with that. But how does Tasha grow from here? You know, I would hate to go back when her run is done and be like, well, she's a one-time Knockouts champion. She was a great champion. I just think there's a little more they can do with her. I mean, if you have her beat Mickie James, you know what I'm saying? Like at that point, you should be elevating her much higher than she is. I'm gonna keep this next one very quick. Victoria Crawford.
Angel Reese, let's get back!
I've never really been a fan of hers. I wasn't a fan of hers in WWE. I thought her wrestling style was a little reckless. I always thought she was going to hurt somebody. When she was released from WWE years ago, I just remember saying, yo, they're going to bring her on. Like, I just knew. I didn't think they were going to do it like years down the road. I didn't even. Has she been wrestling all this time? I just cannot picture her like working the indies. I don't know. But I just never really been a fan of hers. I haven't had a chance to because I wasn't watching. I haven't had a chance to see what she's doing on TNA, so it may completely change my opinion. She's walking around Tessa Blanchard. My opinion on her may be different. We'll see, but I just was really never a fan of hers in WWE. She does that scissors kick where she hasn't hit it the same way twice in her entire life. You know, her matches were like Northern Lights suplex, scissors kick, and everything else is just there. So I don't know. I'll give her a chance. And then finally, it's a long podcast. I got stuff to do. queen of the rubber match, Zia Brookside. She is one that I've been higher on than I think most people are, because much like I said with Tasha, with Tasha Steels, I think Zia Brookside has a little bit of everything. And one of the compliments that I've given her recently, I've always thought her promos were believable, but to me, her matches are believable. She's small in stature, but when she hits you, it looks like she is hitting you. It looks like she is hurting you. Like she can throw a punch, she can throw a kick. She has the basics down in a way that so many wrestlers don't seem to these days. I've brought up examples like Madison Rayne, like Ali, when they would give you forearms, it looks like you couldn't even feel them. I don't think you could feel anything on Madison Rayne's entire moveset. And Zia Brookside comes in and looks like she is laying into you. And the times where she talks backstage, I always feel like she's natural. And I've always said from the beginning, I think she has the ability to be a big-time babyface in this company. They kind of borderline use her as an enhancement talent. But, she had this little feud with Rosemary. Is that supposed to jump something for her? Jumpstart something, I should say. She was also kind of a Scott D'Amore hire. So, we'll see. Like, she's really one of my favorites, though. She's definitely one I do not want to see go away anytime soon. In a world, I can see her with the belt in a year from now. It would take a lot to get there. A lot to get there. But if her and Lelaying Lee as a tag team is really a thing, that's the best thing you can do for both of them right now. You have so many knockouts right now that you can have little mini feuds and tag team feuds that don't revolve around the belt. So she had this feud with Rosemary, though. They said she came out with an edge. She seems exactly the same to me. I don't know. I was really expecting when she feuded with Rosemary and took the mist and all this stuff that they were going to do something different with her. She's the exact same character. So I don't know, but I do think she can be a big-time babyface for the company. I want to see that happen. I want to see her get a little bit more of a push. I'm higher on her than most people are, but I just think I see wrestling differently because I don't live, shit, eat, breathe wrestling like a lot of fans do, and where a lot of fans are looking for moveset and work rate and stars ratings and shit like that, where I just don't. I'm looking for a different type of storytelling inside the ring. I'm looking for believability, and there's a lot of tools that I think she has. And I'm just high on her. I always have been. And we'll see at the end of the day when her run is over if BQ was right, if you guys were right. I don't know. Oh, so that's going to wrap it up for me, folks. I've got things to do. This is your TNA Knockouts roster review. I feel like this went so long that when I do the male review, I may have to break it into two. So, but I may also go quicker on the guys. I don't know. We'll see. I'm your boy, BQ. We'll talk soon. Peace.